Welcome to Stories with Steve, a podcast on the Central Buna Podcast Network. Every Thursday in 5 minutes or less, we'll lift you up with stories of how God works behind the scenes in our lives. Romans 8:28 tells us that God works all things together for the good of those who are called according to his purpose. Now with an encouraging story, here's Steve.
So today, this will be kind of a true confessional, if you will, okay? Sometimes in our lives, we look at people and we think we know people, right? But do we really know them? And we form like judgments about people. We see somebody that is kind of rough around the edges, and we just form a judgment about what we think that person is like. So today, I just kind of want to talk about that a little bit, and maybe it's something you can relate to. I remember there was a guy back in college that, for whatever reason, I didn't like this guy. Maybe it was his personality. We just kind of rubbed each other the wrong way. But I kind of felt guilty about it. Like, I'm supposed to love everyone, right? I'm supposed to just love everyone. And so I decided that I'm going to do something. I'm just going to go back to my dorm. I'm going to pray for this guy. And so I was praying. It was one of those Lord change them prayers, right? But it's funny how it has the opposite effect, when you do that. It boomerangs back to you. And I remember I prayed for the guy, and then I'm sitting in the cafeteria one day, and the guy just comes walking through the door. And I'm telling you, it was supernatural. All of a sudden, I felt just love for this guy. And that was only God. I couldn't have done that. And so it just reminded me that sometimes when we pray for God to change other people, that he really wants to change us, right? And that's what he really wants us to do. And another time I was working for this boss that was always mad. Seemed like he was always angry about everything. It was kind of like in a warehouse. We did deliveries. And so I remember one morning he was like just yelling at everybody about a missing invoice. And somebody yelled back, yeah, 100 years from now, what difference is it going to make? And that kind of made him more mad too. But I just kept thinking, why is that guy always so angry and always, unhappy in his life? Well, somebody pointed out to me one day that his wife had died. And after that, I noticed that I had a different attitude towards him. I just started to see him, and I felt compassion for him. I thought, he's obviously still hurting in his life, and so that's why he carries around maybe that anger in his life. He hasn't resolved it yet. And there was another guy that I work with, and this guy was a Christian guy, but he would act. Well, he didn't act the way I thought he should act anyway, right? He just he would sometimes make crude jokes and crude behavior and act kind of silly, kind of goofy. And I'm just like, man, what's up with this guy? What is his problem? So one day I watch him, and he had a little girl, and she was severely handicapped. I think maybe it was cerebral palsy, in a wheelchair. And so he had to put her in a car. So it wasn't exactly a car seat, but he had to strap her in a certain way. And it took quite a little bit of time. And I watched him putting his little girl in the car. And that really just changed my attitude towards him. I thought, wow, that's what he has to deal with every day in his life. And maybe his sense of humor, the way he acts, maybe that's how he handles the stress in his life. And so I even told him that later. I said, hey, I saw you the other day with your little girl, and it really touched my heart, and it really made me think about sometimes in life we see people. I remember one time I was in a group of people, and the guy said, if I could give you just one thing in your life, one gift, it would be to see the heart of every person in this room, right? Because we're good at looking on the outside, but only God can see the heart. But he can give us the ability if we ask him for it. So I just wonder if you've ever had that experience. I'd love to know about it. Remember, you've got a story to tell.